Creative Control is brought to you by FreshBooks, a ridiculously easy-to-use cloud accounting software for small business owners that saves you time and gets you paid faster. FreshBooks is now used by over 10 million people worldwide, and I want you to try it too. For your free 30-day trial, go to freshbooks.com/creative control and enter Creative Control. That's creative with a K, control with a K. In their How Did You Hear About Us section. Stay organized and get paid faster with FreshBooks.
Stop worrying about what to make for dinner and start cooking instead. HelloFresh Canada will send a box of wholesome ingredients plus a simple-to-follow recipe right to your Canadian doorstep. Vegetarians, meat eaters, single people, families, there's something for almost everyone. Visit HelloFresh.ca for more info and menu options and use the promo code CREATIVE50 for 50% off your first order.
Andrew Cohen and Light Coma is a rock and roll band from Chicago led by Andrew Cohen, who is best known for his past work as a guitarist in bands like Silkworm and Bottomless Pit. In recent years, he has become socially and professionally involved with the band Light Coma, and together they've recently released Unreality, one of the finest albums I've encountered in the year 2017. Unreality is out now via Comedy Minus One Records, and a few weeks ago, Andrew and I had an in-depth discussion about the album, which led to conversations about late friends like Jason Molina and Michael Dahlquist, as well as the musical aesthetic of Neil Young and Crazy Horse, and Bob Dylan, and Keith Richards, and Stephen Malkmus, among other people. Now part of the Entertainment One podcast network and sponsored by FreshBooks, HelloFresh Canada, Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, Planet Bean Coffee, and Granddad's Donuts, this is Andrew Cohen on the 369th episode of Creative Control with your host, me, Vish Khanna.
It's not the usual thing. You're the sick one today. I've been living on sugar puffs. I've been living on sugar.
Hi, Andy. How's it going?
Good. Hi, Vish.
How are you?
I'm good. A little steamy here in our unseasonable early fall weather, but I know you know how that is.
Yeah,
we're not too far from each other.
That's right. I'm feeling the same. I'm sweating and talking to you, and I wish I wasn't wearing these big earmuff headphones to monitor the sound, but this is what I have to work with. Anyway, yeah, it's very hot. It's hot as we're speaking here. Where are you exactly?
I am in Highland Park, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago.
I feel like I just spoke to someone from Highland Park, Illinois. Does Robbie Fulks? Do you know Robbie Fulks?
Yeah. I don't know if he lives here. He used to live in Wilmette, which is about 2 suburbs down from me. So like 5, 6, 7 miles.
Okay.
Yeah. But maybe he moved. I don't know. Maybe he's even closer now.
Jay Ryan? Does Jay Ryan live in Highland Park? I got to go through my old episodes.
Jay Ryan lives in Evanston, which is 1 suburb south of Robbie Fulks' old suburb there in Wilmette.
Steve Albini, does he live near you?
Steve still lives in Chicago,
okay.
So that's 1 city south of the suburb of Evanston.
I'm trying to go through all my recent... Soley? Do you know Stephen Soley?
Yeah, I think he's a Chicago guy too.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So you don't know. Yeah, I'm just going through my mental Rolodex of recent Chicago guests and trying to figure. I probably forgot someone, but anyway,
yeah,
it's a nice area, Highland Park.
Yeah, I like it. It's green.
Yeah,
by our standards, it's got some ravines. So, despite Chicago being extraordinarily flat, it's got a little bit of topography.
Is there a dangerous wildlife where you live?
Well, no. I mean, there's coyotes.
Yeah, that sounds dangerous. No?
I don't really consider them dangerous. I guess maybe if they were rabid, but anything rabid's dangerous.
Sure.
You know, what I think is dangerous is the profusion of deer that are everywhere, like on the bike paths, and they just swarm, and I feel like they're going to jump on me when I'm riding my bike.
Oh, you see them as you're riding?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're like an overpopulation because they're just everywhere. That is actually a legitimate answer to my original question. That is not good because you hit a deer, you could be done. Like yeah, and they're twitchy and they jump in front of you and stuff.
Yeah, I bumped into a deer in the old minivan I used to have. I saw it and I braked, but just as I came to a stop, I just nudged it and then it ran away and I worried that I hurt it, but I don't think yeah, that's frightening. They just show up.
Yeah.
It's
well,
bad.
I know a guy who died when
a deer jumped on him when he was riding his motorcycle.
Oh.
I don't mean they jump on you like a wildcat. What I mean is they jump across the road and you smash into them while they're jumping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's that's not good. Okay. Well, other than that, everything's good in Highland Park.
Yeah, especially wildlife wise.
I don't normally ask wildlife questions, but there's something you mentioned a ravine, and I was trying to picture where you were and all that. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, there's trout and the deer and coyotes and stuff.
Right. Okay. So it's nice. That sounds nice. All right. Well, I'm excited to talk to you about this record, Unreality, and also to get some background on you. And this is a relatively newer band configuration for you. It's Andrew Cohen and Light Coma. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Where did
Light Coma?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Light Coma was an established band of Chicago guys. It's Brian Orchard, who also played in the Bottomless Pit, my previous band. Mm-hmm. Jim McGregor on drums, who's been a Chicago man about town and played in many bands around here, as well as Ryan Rezvani on bass. And they played around for quite a while. And so, do you want me to tell you the sort of genesis of this thing?
Well, that's the point. Yes, of course.
All right.
Particularly if it involves Genesis. Were you listening to Genesis at the time that you came together? That's what I... No. Is there any relation?
No, never.
Okay.
So I've been a fan of Light Coma for a long time. And then previously I was in this band Silkworm for a long time, from the 80s until 2005.
I saw Silkworm in Vancouver and Victoria, British Columbia.
Nice.
Opening for Shellac.
Oh, great. Yeah, the great Western Canada tour of 1998.
That's right. Was it 98 or 99? I just told someone it was 99. Was it 98?
Oh, you're probably right.
No, I might be wrong.
99.
I might be wrong, but I thought it was 99, and I was just telling the story that Shellac had the Maple Leaf Lomo shirts for that tour. Like they had yeah, I have one of those. Yeah.
They made a big deal out of the Canada angle, which I guess was justified. We played great places like Victoria, Vancouver, yes. Kelowna, BC.
Do you remember
Regina?
Yes, that's right. And Winnipeg, I believe.
Winnipeg, of course. Yeah. A couple others that are escaping me at the moment.
Did you remember that Victoria had a curfew? It was like a weird bar.
The bar was called the Duke of Perth or something, Duchess of York, something like that.
Yeah.
It was a very down and dirty, skeezy rock and roll rocker, everyone gets super drunk kind of place, which is cool.
Yeah.
In its way, it's cool. So the show went well.
Yeah.
And then we stayed in this absolutely heinous Flophouse hotel, where it was the kind of place where you don't want to turn the lights off because then the bugs will swarm all over you.
Right.
And it's got the hang yourself lighting, like the exposed bulb on the cloth covered cord hanging from the ceiling.
Yes.
And then someone set fire to a dumpster underneath Todd Trainor's room during the middle of the night. So it was a real rocker kind of night.
Oh wow, yeah, I remember the bar.
This is Winnipeg. That's the capital of.
No, this was Victoria. Victoria.
Oh no. The stuff I'm talking about all happened in Winnipeg.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
Victoria,
I didn't go to the Winnipeg show. I have no knowledge of the Winnipeg show. But yeah,
Victoria that place was pretty nice. It was like clean and it was pretty sedate.
Yeah, you guys were kind of in a. Were you in a cage? No, there was some kind of fencing or something around the stage, and then there were TVs. Like closed circuit TVs showing everyone around the bar what was happening on stage, but the bar wasn't that big, so I was confused as to why you would need to watch the same show on TV. And in Vancouver, the night before, I think it was, I feel like, was it possible that Joel R.L. Phelps showed up at that show?
Yes, it's likely.
And surprised Steve, because Steve seemed very excited to see him. I remember that.
Yeah, Joel sighting, especially in that era, was not common and was always to be looked forward to.
Yeah. I feel like I've talked about this with Tim when he was on the show, and with Joel, I think, when he was on the show. I just remember. Anyway, that's the first two times I saw Silkworm, and it meant a lot to me. So you mentioned Silkworm, and I interrupted you, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Please continue.
So that band ran for a long time. That was in 1987 to 2005. And then Tim and our drummer was murdered in Chicago in 2005, and that was the end of that band. Mm-hmm. And then Tim and I formed a band pretty quickly afterward called Bottomless Pit. So I'm getting to the Light Coma story, by the way. So the Bottomless Pit was me and Tim, and Brian Orchard of Light Coma was playing bass because he was a bud of ours and, a good musician. We knew we could do it. And Chris Manfred from Seam on drums.
Okay.
And so we had a good run with that band, too. I don't have the dates as firmly as in my mind. So we started that around, late 2005, early 2006. That ended, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. It's now 2017. So let's call it 2014. I don't exactly know the dates.
Yeah. And Bottomless Pit was that a difficult band to get up and running? Obviously you went through this horrible tragedy and
yeah.
And it felt
that was kind of the beginning of the Pit was, Tim and I obviously had this, I don't know how obvious it is, but we had sort of a little bit of a need for a creative outpouring after Michael, our drummer, was killed.
Yeah.
And so, we had some songs and we were playing with a few different people. But when we started with Chris and Brian, it gelled pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. We're all on the same wavelength and it worked. So, yeah. And so, it was hard to get up and running in a certain way in that I sort of think of Bottomless Pit the way I think of like the early Silkworm stuff when Joel was still in the band. So for those who don't know, Silkworm started out as a 4-piece, 2 guitars, me and Joel, Tim on bass, and then we had drummers in Montana, but then eventually Michael in Seattle, who we met in 1990, was sort of the main guy on drums, obviously, for a long time.
Right.
So the early Worm was a funny beast because we rehearsed a lot, and we had to because there was just a lot going on all the time. And so most of that music is very heavily arranged through hours of rehearsal because Joel and I think, were very sensitive to not stepping on each other's toes, especially since, a lot of stuff was at top volume and there was just a lot of expression happening everywhere.
Yeah.
But we I think, got our arms around it again by playing together a lot and being young and interested and able to get that stuff arranged. Later, Joel Phelps quit the band in 1994, I think. We were a 3-piece, and by that time we were A, more experienced, B, older, and C, now we're a 3-piece, and so there's less stuff to arrange.
Right.
So the stuff, it was just easier to do stuff. Easier doesn't mean better, it just means it took less rehearsal, and, we were, again, more experienced. So the band, I think the sound changed pretty significantly after that. Mm-hmm. Then when we got back in the Pit, we kind of had the same situation we had with the early Worm, which was 2 really loud and prominent and lots of ideas guys, me and Tim, playing guitars. So Tim was playing a baritone guitar all the time in the Pit. Mm-hmm. But it's, it's still a guitar. So that band, again, took a lot more arranging and time and tweaking to get things right. So that's the way that it was sort of hard. It wasn't hard from like a personal, those guys are great and we had a great time. And considering the complexity of the arrangements, it came together very quickly and easily.
I would have seen you and Tim perform in some capacity at the Touch and Go anniversary party in the Hideout parking lot, I guess it was, really. Was that early Pit or no?
That was, what year was it?
2006 or just 2006?
Oh, yeah. That would have been either before the Pit or early Pit, yeah.
Okay.
So also Matt Cadane was with us at that time too. By the end of the Silkworm run, we'd been playing with Matt and other keyboard players to fill in some of the gaps here and there, mm-hmm. and just be fun. So Matt joined us for that show too.
Okay. So out of all of that, the Bottomless Pit ended. Is this your first sort of release since Bottomless Pit?
Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
So you teamed up with like Coma, and it sounded like that just happened organically. You were a fan.
Yeah. So it's funny because after the Pit stopped, so I've been doing this a long time. Obviously, I'm 47 now. I started when I was about 14.
Yeah.
Doing it a lot, and after every record, basically since the mid 90s, I've sort of been like, I don't know do we have anything else to say? And we always have. Mm-hmm. But it's very process oriented. You know what I mean? It's not like I think I'm going to have this 40-year career and execute it. It's sort of like every record is the same questions, and so far so good.
Right.
So after the Pit stopped, I was like, I'm busy. I got a corporate job. I got a bunch of kids. Is this worth the time to do? Do I really? Maybe I'll retire.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I just kind of kept playing acoustic by myself, essentially. And then I'm like, it might be fun to go out and do an acoustic show here and there. And I did. do a few of those in Chicago, and they are fun. And it was nice because unlike an unwieldy monster of a 4-piece band of adult male humans, it's just me. It's easy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's funny, and it sounds lame to talk about stuff in terms of how expedient it is, but that's kind of where my head was at, was like, if it's easy and fun, I'm going to do it. And if it's a struggle, I'm not going to bother because I've done enough.
Well, you said you were working and you are a dad.
Yeah, but that's been true for a long time. So those excuses aren't really new.
Oh no, I know that, but I do think that there's a relationship with time that changes. Your time is more precious, so you want to make sure you're maximizing all of your time.
Exactly. Yeah, and we can talk about what the use of time a little bit too, like specifically about projects. But anyway,
yeah.
So I was at one of these shows, and Jim McGregor from Coma, who obviously I've known for years, was there, and it's kind of one of those things, I think, where someone says the right thing at the right time in the right context, and it just kind of sticks with you. And I'll tell you a quick story about another time that happened.
Sure.
So right after the show, I'm like, yeah, we played, and Jim's like, oh, I enjoyed it, yada yada, and he's like, hey, I was talking to the other guys in Coma, and we were thinking we could be your crazy horse. And I was like, oh, maybe it would be fun to play with a band. That sounds kind of cool. And so then, we went and rehearsed, and it was easy, and I think sounded good right away. And when I say easy, I mean it came together without struggle.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, this is plausible, and we just played some more, and then it resulted in the electric stuff.
Okay.
I mean, at the time, I was kind of conceiving of doing a record of just acoustic, just me. But then, Jim kind of inserted himself there, and it worked out. Well, it's funny because another time when there was a pivotal little comment like that was funny. I was in college at Columbia University in 1988, 89 maybe.
Uh-huh.
And so Silkworm had started in Montana, and Tim and Joel had moved to Seattle to sort of continue the band. And I had graduated from high school, and I had gone to New York to go to college. So it was kind of, we'll see what happens, but it seems unlikely that this band's going to continue, at least with my participation.
Yeah.
I think I made some feeble attempt to get them to move to New York, but that wasn't going to happen at the time. Anyway, so I went through my first year of college. It was great. Went back to Montana, summer of 89. We played some shows and stuff, and it was great as always. Went back to college, and then not too long before my first semester was over, I got this little postcard from Tim. It said, hey, me and Joel are moving to Seattle. You should drop out of college and move to Seattle and rock with us. And I was like, okay. And that was it. And then a week later, I went to see the dean, hey, I kind of thinking about going to Seattle. If I leave, can I come back if it doesn't work out or whatever? He's like, yeah, anytime. And so I'm like, okay, I'll go out there.
Yeah.
And if it's terrible, I'll just come back here. And so it was nice, and it was an easy transition.
I see. So you're saying that when someone says something to you and sparks something, it's a good idea to follow through and see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, these are the two examples when that's happened. I'm sure there's been plenty of times when I've gotten requests and not followed through, and I don't remember those.
No, but I think the moral of your story is always listen to a musician. Just always. If they suggest something, just do what they say.
They have the best ideas.
They do have the best ideas, yeah. Well, this seems like a good enough time as any to get into this wonderful record of yours, Unreality, which does feature at least six sort of full band songs with Coma, and then 3 solo songs, I suppose. Are they primarily solo, just you and a guitar?
Yeah, well, one of them features Slow-Mo Mike Brenner on dobro and slide. He has this thing he made, a slide bass guitar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he was in Magnolia Electric Company?
He was. Well, he's like a gun for hire, I think, but I met him when he was playing with Magnolia, and he played on a few of their records, and I think is well known for that stuff.
Okay. So yeah, let's begin. And so we're going to go song by song. Andy, have you done this with anyone else? Have you talked about
Never. No, never.
Never. This will be interesting, won't it?
I've talked about specific songs here and there, but not in any detail like this.
Okay, we're going to talk about the origin, intent, and whatever else we can think of about these songs. And we begin with the very first song on the record, which is called Repack.
Daddy, I'm dying out here. It's just a little pollen in your hair. We're worst that'll happen is you might sneeze. You're always saying things you don't mean. I'm not allowed to hold the flag. It belonged to everyone until today. I'm gonna poke you with a plastic fork. The times will bend, at least that's what we hope. Let her push you on the thing. If I touch this, will it burn me? No one's a leader, we all follow along. Charge at the enemy, he's not that strong. I will distract her with my pain. A biting finger, it'll go away. I type the passcode to the access gates. Hand it over, it's not your place.
I see a lot of fatherhood imagery in here, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this song is an easy one because it has an origin story, although the origin story doesn't necessarily relate to all of the lyrical content. This one is partially written by my kids. A lot of these lines in here are actually lines I eavesdropped on them saying to each other on a particular afternoon in August.
oh, I see.
Yes, so that's so some
and
of them are
you've kind of
obvious.
stitched them together?
Yes,
Right.
so I stitched them together. I added some narrative of my own, and that's how we ended up with this.
Oh, that's very fascinating because it does seem pretty stream of consciousness. It does have
Yeah.
that disconnected quality, and then sort of midway through, or maybe even close, around midway through, we run into like a character who goes by Crossover Jimmy.
Yeah.
So is that who is Crossover Jimmy?
Yeah, I see that. Here's the problem with kind of getting into songs in too much detail is they're not really defensible or explainable very easily. I don't know.
Did you just conjure Crossover Jimmy? The lyric is Crossover Jimmy was a normal guy. I never suspected he was always high.
Yeah. This one didn't come from them, I think.
I hope not.
No, this was probably sort of if there's like a song of experience and a song of innocence in the same song, this is probably getting into the song of experience part.
Well, there are some very amusing lines for sure. Let me see here. There's oh yeah, I'm just Dad. Well, it starts very vividly. Daddy, I'm dying out here. It's just a little pollen in your hair. Worst that'll happen is you might sneeze. You're always saying things you don't mean. I mean, there's real poetry to that.
Yeah. Well, the "Daddy, I'm dying out here" is a direct quote from one of them.
Were they on stage performing comedy? Why were they?
No, they're just running around in the yard, jerking around like kids do. You
okay.
know, but you're always saying things you don't mean. I mean, that's the essence of what they do.
Right.
They don't know what they mean.
Right.
They just say things.
What is the age range roughly of when your kids might have said some of these things, or do you know?
The age would be 5 to 10, 5, 8, and 10.
I will
4, 8, and 10.
I will distract her with my pain.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? Is that a thing one of your kids said?
No, that's more an observation of one of their techniques. Is like they'll act like they're hurt, right?
Okay.
So if one of them's making a fuss, the other one will act more hurt, and then it'll be a distraction.
Well, it's so there's observational stuff going on, but it's also, I mean, you're hearing things they're saying, but you're also commenting on things they're saying and doing as well.
Yes,
as the narrator, as the writer of this piece.
Clearly.
Okay. All right. And musically, is there anything you want to say about it? I don't want to delve too much into it, knowing what I know now. I think it's good. It's a nice melody to this, nice phrasing. I think as a song, it really works.
Thanks.
I sound like a judge on one of those TV shows right now. I don't mean to. I've never said that.
That's okay. That's what you are. You're a critic.
I've never said that to anyone before, but yeah.
The other thing I'll say about this song musically that I really like is it's one of my favorite forms, which is the one-parter.
Yeah.
So it's one part, and it's all about texture and dynamics.
Yeah, there are no choruses. It is a ramble. It's a bit of a rambling thing.
Yeah.
And is there any significance to the title, Repack?
No. Repack was this word that it had sort of just echoed in my mind, and I forgot what it meant. And I think later I figured out that it was like a historic mountain bike race in California.
Oh.
So
it's called the Repack?
I think so.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it doesn't. The title honestly doesn't really mean anything in connection with the song.
But the song itself almost doesn't mean anything either.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's vignettes.
Yes.
And it's songs. It's a song of innocence and experience in one song.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
all right. No, that's fair. All right. Let's move on. I think we're going to move on already. That was a quick one. We're going to move on to a song that made me a little hungry. It's called Sugar Puffs.
Yeah.
I've been living on sugar puffs. I've been living on sugar puffs. 43 years have been enough. They melted into some stuff. I left them out in the rain. I ought to be ashamed. Out on the ice floes. No one will ever know what you have been through. I've been living on sugar puffs. I've been living on sugar puffs. 43 years have been enough. They melted into some stuff.
This is a song that has a sadness to it, I think, but at the same time, I don't think this cereal is even called Sugar Puffs anymore, but it made me think of cereal. Is it related to the cereal, the old cereal Sugar Puffs?
Well, that's where I got the name. And it's funny because I don't eat this stuff, and I thought, is this another one of those sort of words that I just sort of remembered, like Sugar Puffs?
Yeah.
And I think part of this image is stolen, right? So there's a Dramarama record from the 80s, I believe. I don't remember the name of the record, but it has a song on it that Joel covered, whose name escapes me. It's the acoustic one on that record, and Joel has covered it. And one of the lines is something like, "I'm living on chocolate ice cream."
Oh.
And so I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. And I'm one of these guys who thinks sugar is like a terrible thing to eat, and it's like causes lots of problems.
Yes, it does.
And so I just thought it was funny to think about living on something like chocolate ice cream. And I'm like, well, think about these Sugar Puffs things that everyone eats for breakfast.
Right.
And at that point I thought, I don't think Sugar Puffs is a real cereal, but it sounds like a funny thing to eat. A Sugar Puff. It sounds terrible.
Well, when I go back to the notion I had that there was sadness on this within the song, I there's certain lines that stick out. I've been living on Sugar Puffs. 43 years have been enough. Out on the ice floe, no one will ever know what you have been through. There's just sort of this sense of someone casting off, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because these ideas all come from somewhere, right? So living on Sugar Puffs, I think, is a depressing thought. Although, if you're a different kind of person, maybe it sounds like you think it's like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and it's great. But for me, it's pretty depressing.
I see.
Okay. And this ice floe thing is funny because when I was in law school, we read this case whose name I don't remember. And it was all about these guys who lived on an ice floe in the Canadian Arctic. And I think it was a murder case because they made this stuff called raisin wine. And that was their only access to alcohol on this ice floe. It was like being in prison. And, you know, so the case has this narrative in it about how they would get drunk on raisin wine. And whatever happened between the parties, you know, one of the questions was, well, was it an excuse that they were drunk on this raisin wine that they ginned up in their bathtub or whatever?
Oh.
So then I was like, oh, the ice floe, and they're out there floating around and you know, they're totally alone. And again, it's like being in prison, but you're not in prison. But no one will ever know because it's an ice floe in the middle of nowhere.
You're isolated.
So
yeah,
it's 1,000% isolation.
Right. Well, this song has that alienation running through it as well. It's quite vivid and striking. And the arrangement, is there anything you want to say about the music or the arrangement?
No.
No? Okay.
Not really. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any specific observations on this one.
I mentioned Steve Albini earlier. You recorded some of this record with Steve?
Yeah, I did the acoustic session with Steve many months in advance of the electric stuff.
Yeah.
Back when I thought that I was going to be a solo artiste. by myself.
You say that disparagingly.
I don't know.
Is that more about yourself or about the notion of a troubadour?
No, it's just funny.
Just funny to you, the notion of you
someone who has a pretension that anybody would want to listen to just them troubadouring in a studio by themselves.
I see. Right.
When it's done well, it's great, and when it's not done well, it's horrible.
Right.
And you end up with the artiste thing. Well, it's funny because that's why there's 3 acoustic sounds on here, because I had been practicing them, and this was in my sort of soul searching phase of, do I want to bother doing this anymore kind of thoughts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I've been doing all this stuff and I keep playing it for some reason. It's like a compulsion. Like, I'm sitting in my little home office from which I'm talking to you now playing this stuff. I'm like, oh, why don't I just go in the studio for a day with Steve and see what it's like, see what it really sounds like.
Right.
So that's why that's the genesis of those 3 acoustic songs.
Did you know Steve when you lived in Montana?
No, Steve, he's older than me, like me and Tim.
Yeah.
And when we were in Montana, that was significant because he was, I think, out of high school by the time I got into high school. He's 4 or 5 years older than me.
Okay.
So, no, my brother knew him. And then Tim met him when Tim moved to Chicago in 1987 or 88. But then we started recording with Steve, we meaning Silkworm, in 1991 or 92, and kind of stuck with him for eons. And that's part of the reason I wanted to go with Steve. There were 2 reasons. 3 reasons. One is I knew it would sound great, so if it was worth keeping, it would be done right.
Yeah.
2 is, I'm comfortable with Steve. He's a good friend, and so it wasn't like I'm going to be thinking social problems, thoughts while I'm trying to do this exposed music.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the third is, he has a good ear and he has a lot of background with my music and good opinions. And so if it were improvable on the fly, he would be a good person to bounce ideas off of. Or if it were a waste of time, he would see that pretty quickly and we'd wrap it up after an hour and go eat some tacos.
Right. And what kind of feedback did he give you?
Hardly any. So it kind of fell more into the first category or 2 where I just kind of did my thing. Steve facilitated and made a nice atmosphere and got a good sound. And so it struck me that it was good enough to keep quickly. So that was no problem.
Right. Did you record the vocals as you were playing?
Yeah. So all that acoustic stuff is just me and guitar. There's no overdubs.
Right. Okay. And what about the electric stuff? Who did you do that with?
We did that with Matt Barnhart, who is he's sort of I guess I would call him the Renaissance man of Chicago music scene, or one of them.
Really?
So he's kind of a multi-talented, multifaceted dude. I think his day job, he has 2 main day jobs. One is as a mastering engineer at Chicago Mastering.
Yeah, with Bob Weston. Yeah.
Exactly. One is as a touring sound man for various artists like Bob Mould and a bunch of other people.
Mets,
the Destroyer. I think the Destroyer, Canadian band. Too.
Right. Yeah.
And then he also used to own a record studio in Texas before he moved to Chicago, and still has a somewhat active recordiste career. So I knew Matt would be a good guy. I've known Matt forever. I mean, he ran sound for The Worm and the New Year on some tours, and so he's been a great guy. And he's played in some other bands that we've toured with as well. So,
I mean, with Steve, you didn't get much feedback, which in a sense was a good thing. Did Matt offer you, production advice at all?
Not really. We were pretty well rehearsed by the time we got to recording this stuff.
Okay.
And so we just kind of went in and did our thing.
Okay.
I mean, the same as like anybody with a good ear and a good background in music would give you, like, oh, that seemed a little slow. This take you weren't as together as you should.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Just being a mechanic.
Yep.
Inviting you to stay. It's not the usual thing. You're the sick one today. I've been living on sugar puffs. I've been living on sugar.
There's a lyric in Sugar Puffs that I wanted to ask you about, but I think it recurs in The Usual. So let's move on to the next song, which, as I alluded to just now, is called The Usual.
Do you want to live here? I'm inviting you to stay. It's not the same old thing. You're the sick one today, and you're so missed today. And I don't mean in the usual way. I know I don't mean in the usual way. This time it's for real. This time it's for real. This time it's real.
This is another song steeped, I think, in parenthood. It has again another little bit of sadness in it. It is one of your numbers there with Steve in terms of it's just you and oh wait, is it just you? I don't mean to speak out of turn. Yeah.
Nope. Yep. It's just me.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of vivid imagery here, but one of the lyrics I was just alluding to is "You're the sick one today," which recurs in Sugar Puffs and The Usual. What's going on there? Why does that line come back?
Well, it's a pretty general observation that people have when they see others around them who they see as having a hard time or being sick, right? Mm-hmm. But I'll give you the specific one on this. And so there was this guy named Jason Molina who was the Magnolia Electric Company guy, along with Songs Ohio and a bunch of other projects.
Of course, yeah.
And so it's funny because I wouldn't call Jason like a great friend. Because it's not like we hung all the time or anything like that. But we did several tours together, and I always liked his music, and I really liked some of it. Like, I think that the Magnolia Electric Company, the one that's titled that, is, for rock and roll, is one of the best records ever made, I think. I would say at least a couple of the songs are probably the best single pieces of music anybody I know has ever done.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that's just my opinion, right? Mm-hmm. That's just how it hits me. And so when Bottomless Pit was recording our second or third record, I don't remember which one, when Jason died, we were all at Electrical. It's kind of interesting. And so someone came in and said, "Hey, Jason, we just got news that Jason Molina is dead." And it wasn't a shock at all, because anybody who knew Jason knew that he'd sort of gone off the deep end in the last couple of years of his life and was all over the place. Well, I thought geographically, and, super drunk and in bad shape, right?
He was an alcoholic, I believe.
Well, I don't know, but he drank himself to death. Right. I guess, people have a lot of different ideas of what an alcoholic is, but I guess he probably qualifies.
Yeah, sorry, it's not my place to say, but yeah.
No, I don't know. I'm not trying to scold you. I just don't.
Yeah,
he was some sort of addict, and he had definitely drank too much.
And for context, Steve worked with Jason on a few occasions, I believe.
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah.
And so, but I started this out by saying he and I weren't great friends, but, we were friends and knew each other sort of, just from being on tours together and, liking each other's music and stuff. And so when we got the news, like I said, it wasn't a surprise, and I wasn't like crushed. Like when Michael, the drummer, our old drummer, died, who was like, my solid bro from way back, best friend guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, this is terrible, but I have to say it's not unexpected. And we've heard a lot of stories, and
right.
Okay. And so, and Jason was a funny guy too, right? It was very hard to tell with him what was artifice and what was his real personality. Mm-hmm. But there were times when he seemed very genuine, and it almost always was connecting over like a musical connection. So I realized later, as I didn't think about it that much, but it sort of germinated in my mind somehow, maybe subconsciously, that I'm like, wow, this is a real loss. Like, this is, it's not the same emotional impact as like a close friend or something, but man, this is really bothering me, this loss.
Right, right.
This is a entity that was capable of this stuff that I really liked. And it wasn't just that. I remember this time that I opened a show for him for Mags, and it was just me acoustic, because I think the Bottomless Pit guys were out of town or something. Mm-hmm. And so we were hanging out outside, and he was capable of like this very effusive, genuineness. And he's like, I played this thing. We played the show, and it was like late at night, we're loading out. And he's like, man, you know, you're really my brother. And I really appreciate having you around to like know there's other people who understand this music and all this stuff. And at the time, I'm like, oh, it's J-Mo, you know, whatever. This is like years before he died. This is before I even knew he had like substance problems. Right. It was just like J-Mo being J-Mo, and I still saw him pretty frequently and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I think what it was is I kind of had this dawning realization that like, wow, here was like this serious fellow traveler. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? There's hardly anybody like that in the world. Like, I don't know very many people I can say the stuff I can say about Jason. Like, someone who really gets it, serious fellow traveler, is capable of putting out music that might blow my socks off. I'm like, whoa. And so I think the Sick One today, and You're Sick and all this stuff is really just sort of expressing, wow, you know, again, consciously, his death at the time wasn't like a crushing blow. It was a bummer, but it wasn't crushing. But later it was like a slow burn where like, wow, this is a huge loss.
Artistically and on a social level for you.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah. So is Jason haunting a lot of this song? Again, like the line recurs, so I wonder if I because you have this recurring line, for me now, these songs are interconnected, but I don't know what the relationship is between. And like I said, the Sugar Puff song does seem like someone sort of saying, I'm done.
So I guess, you're right. I mean, I guess if we were going to look for a more directed narrative on the Sugar Puff song, it would pretty much be maybe what it was like to be him in the last period of his life.
Right. Sugar Puffs are stand-in for any number of things that are bad for you. Yeah. I actually Googled Sugar Puffs to make sure it wasn't some substance reference I didn't get. I'm not so up on the lingo, you know, so I was like, do kids call something Sugar Puffs? Like,
it's funny you say that, because I Googled it after we'd recorded it thinking, is Sugar Puffs a real thing? And I Googled it, and you pointed out early on, you just threw out there, I think it changed its name.
Yeah.
I think it was a British cereal. And that's
right.
why you know about it probably. And then it changed its name to I think it's
I
called
am not in England. I am in Canada.
I know.
Yeah, you're right. No,
British import foods from the 80s.
Yeah. No, I recognize the name. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, if anything's going to sound like a cereal, it's Sugar Puffs. I mean, that's, again, the only thing was like, this must mean something else. But, yeah. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, it's literally I've been living on Sugar Puffs, and think how you would feel if that's all you ate.
Yeah, and so I do think with your insight there, I can see how these two songs might connect to something going on with Jason, or your perspective on what
Yeah.
There's the invocation of intervention here. Should I try to intervene? Should I even try? Like, what, that kind of helpless feeling you have when you know someone is going through something and you know them really well, but you can't make yourself step in almost because it doesn't seem
Or is it I mean, you can beat your head against a wall, but someone has to sort of want to improve, or before any of that will be of any use, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay, well, that was heavier than I expected it to be, but at the same time, I detected something was going on.
Hey, you play with fire, you can get burned.
I ask the questions. It's true. I can't predict what the answers are going to be, but I'm giving you my slight impressions of where things are going. Here's one that is more mystifying to me. It's got a more joyous feeling to it in terms of a musical arrangement. It's called Your Biography.
Fell in love with an ice pick. Couldn't go near it without a sting. I learned a lesson, got rid of that thing. I fell down a well. I scraped the sides, hit the dirt. Now it's nothing. At the time it hurt.
This is a lovely song, and it's got another It actually has we were talking earlier about Repack it being sort of one thing. This has a nice chorusy part, and you've done some phrasing stuff with the word "oh." You know, you stretched out the word "oh" in a very lovely...
we got some harmonies happening, which is that's part of the multi-talented entity that is Light Coma. Those guys can really kick out the real music when they need to.
Yeah, and it does have a very a more hopeful feeling. I mean, the more you delve into the lyrics, it gets a little darker, I think. But tell me about this song. What inspired your biography?
Well, I mean, it's a love song, I think. It's a funny love song though, because it's, oh man, this is going to sound like the worst thing you've ever heard in an interview.
Wow, I'm really looking forward to this now.
This love song is infused with ideas and impressions from the beginning of an exploration of Buddhist philosophy and meditation.
Oh. That's cool. That's not the first time this has even come up on this show in this month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's about love, but it's trying to evoke this feeling, especially in the music and in a feeling. And I want to ask you a question about this in a second.
Yes.
It's supposed to feel light, and maybe joyous is a little too strong, but sort of free. And, some of these words are some of these lyrics, like the stuff about the air was cloudy, I couldn't breathe, knowledge is out there for you to pick up. I mean, this is sort of the Buddhist stuff coming through. Mm-hmm. Like a dream, it seems so real. That's not some particular thing. That's just all of existence, right?
Yeah.
It seems real. It's really a dream. Or it's more like a dream than it is like what is supposedly behind the reality that you're supposedly observing. But one thing I've thought about this arrangement is I think it sounds cool and it does have those qualities, but sometimes I think it's a little too abrasive, like it's too rockin'.
Oh.
But maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. Maybe it's just because that guitar is so loud and it's very ringing and...
No. That gives it a certain... I like it because I think the vocal, if I may, is quite sweet. It's a nice, you've got I don't mean to embarrass you. You have a distinctive way of singing and I enjoy it, and I always have, but it's a particularly sweet vocal performance and all this stuff. And it's mixed in a way that I think that abrasion you're talking about, that abrasiveness is sort of measured.
Okay.
It's there. It's got a power. It's propelling you, and it's propelling the song, but it's not overpowering, so to speak.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You're telling me exactly what I want to hear, so I like it.
No, but it's true. I mean, this song stuck out for me as kind of like a classic pop song, almost. Like, I mean, in the sense of the way you and I in our 40s might think of a pop song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, It has that kind of infectious quality, and I want to hear it again, and it stays with me kind of thing. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at the last line, I don't want to diffuse the idea of the love by calling it Buddhist and saying nothing is real. Because, part of the Buddhist psychology is you get to tell yourself stories to get through existence, right?
Yeah.
And so, here we're telling a story of our never-ending love, right?
Well, there's even more lovely... I like this notion of we saw it the same, we agree, and that's enough. I mean, that's a sentiment we need right now. This like finding the joy and the beauty in something as simple as that. I think that notion. I mean, not the lyric, but I just think that's a lovely turn of phrase.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So.
Well, good. Yeah. I mean, I wrote it fast, and it came together pretty quickly in the arrangement, and Light Coma was instrumental in getting it to be the way it is, and. So it's one of those that was not like a long, difficult struggle. It was a pretty easy one that came out well.
This title, Your Biography, is fascinating. Are you talking to yourself? Whose biography is this?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. It's just I thought we're telling ourselves a story here, and it's whoever's biography you want it to be.
Yeah. Okay. I just wondered if it's drawn from within you, but not necessarily about you, so to speak.
Right.
Okay.
I was looking for you. Like a dream, seems so real. I ran toward you across the urban field. Saw it the same.
Promotional consideration is brought to you by HelloFresh Canada. Visit HelloFresh.ca for more information and menu options, and use the promo code Creative50, all one word, and creative is with a K, Creative50 for 50% off your first order. Also, FreshBooks, a cloud accounting software for small business owners. Go to freshbooks.com/creative control, and in their How Did You Hear About Us section, use the promo code Creative Control, creative with a K, control with a K, all one word, and you will get to try FreshBooks for 30 days for free. We move on now to a song that basically comes back in a different form later on. The song I'm referring to is Midwest DTs.
I'm making the highway a little less slow. I'm wondering what to do when nothing would flow. How do we do this? I know you don't know. Wondering if it's new or it's just something we got.
So this is sort of an outgrowth of Jim's thing about like, hey, you know, we could be your Crazy Horse. I'm like, hey, we should do what Crazy Horse does and have the acoustic version and the electric version on the album.
Yeah, sure. That's what they like a Rust Never Sleeps thing, maybe. Or
yeah.
Sure.
Well, Neil Young did it on Freedom too.
Oh yeah, he does.
The
guy does it all the time. Yeah, that's a thing he does. But yeah, I think of Rust Never Sleeps.
You know, it's funny that you say that because this reminds me of so when I was in Silkworm, I had a couple songs that were like historical World War II narratives, like a couple.
Yeah.
Like 2.
Yeah.
Out of,
Okay.
10 albums.
Yeah.
And then from then on, it was always like, oh, this is the guy who has all the World War II songs. There's as if there were so many. I think these hooks like stick in people's minds. Because if you really think about it, I bet you Neil Young, out of like 50 albums, has done this like 3 times.
Yeah.
But now he seems like the guy who always does this.
Well, I will say also with him is that's his binary though, is like soft and loud. So
yeah.
And I mean, for better or for worse, he still looms large on indie rock and underground rock in terms of how
the largest, probably.
Yeah, and just in terms of how people approach dynamics in music. Of like, I'm going to go. As a listening experience, you're going to hear a record that is a journey, a sonic journey, if you will, and he's done that so often that that's where I think people and I mean it's good because if you're a fan of his, you know he's going through different phases and stages. Not to sort of paraphrase a Willie Nelson record, but this notion that you never know what you're going to get next from him.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
and
I think 3 times in a corpus is enough because. It's a hook. It sticks in people's minds, and I'm sure some scholar of music could tell me 1,000 other artists who've done it.
Yeah.
But I'm not immediately thinking of other people who've done it. So
well, when you contextualize it on the same record, it's like I said, like I picked out that recurring lyric between the 2 songs, Sugar Puffs and The Usual. So when a writer does something like that, it's interesting. It highlights the idea and the songs that are being impacted. So when I guess I don't mean to jump too far ahead, but the last song on this record is Midwest Delirium. And it has a strong, it's fair to say, it has a very strong connection to Midwest DTs. And
well, it's the same song.
It's the same song with a different arrangement, so to speak. And there's a band on the final one. But what that does, though, because you put them on the same record, some bands would be like, oh, like Superchunk used to do this all the time. You'd get the single for whatever single they had, and they'd be like 5 acoustic versions of songs that you'd only heard electric before. Maybe from the same record. Lots of artists will be, there was the whole
it's very common in like the hip hop world. It's like half their stuff is remixes, right?
Well, yes, remixes, sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so in those cases, it's basically the vocal stem is the same, but the beat is different. But in this case, and in some of the other examples we were each talking about, I think it can change the song. I mean, it can change your relationship to the song. So,
well, that was the idea, and it's something I'm surprised people don't do more often, is like a fairly radical rearrangement of the same song.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just I want to do what Crazy Horse does. It was basically what really happened was I had this acoustic version that I liked a lot, and then when I got together with Light Coma, it was one of the first songs we played, and it like immediately came together with like, you know, Jim has this great groove with the drums. And it just like felt right immediately.
Right.
And so it was clear to me that like that the version with the good groove with the band had to be recorded as well.
Yeah.
So it felt, I you know, and it had a different feel than the acoustic one, which is sort of strident and straightforward. So I just felt like, yeah, it's worthy of inclusion, and it fits into that paradigm with copying Neil Young.
Again, I mean, I hear the Crazy Horse thing, but that's just because I listen to a lot of Crazy Horse, and I kind of know certain tricks. But there is this is another song that delves into resignation in regards to living, and there's a few examples lyrically.
I don't want to drink that, I gotta keep my edge. Oh, just fuck it, I'll step off of that.
I don't want to drink that, got to keep my edge, which I believe is a reference to being straight edge. Oh, just fuck it, I'll step off that ledge. You know, and then it ends with this, ask me tomorrow, no idea what I'll accept, which recurs a few times, but it ends with, finally, I'll be dead tomorrow. That's what I'll accept. So there's another darkly hued song.
This song is written from what I think Jason Molina was probably saying to himself in his last week. I don't know if he was, but this is me inhabiting his mentality for that week.
Okay.
Because, you know, I don't know the whole story. I haven't like read books or articles about Jason's passing or anything like that, but I do know that he died of some organ failure, I think from like a massive binge of drinking, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's public knowledge. That's about as much as I know.
I mean,
and I know he'd been holed up for a long time, and he'd come and gone and was getting crazier and crazier.
Again, I don't mean to speak out of turn, and anyone who knew him or knows the circumstances, please forgive me. But I don't mean to invoke this lightly. But I recall, my sense memory tells me that I remember it being framed as a suicide.
Yeah. So basically, right. I think he did. It seemed if it wasn't intentional in the sense of I'm going to drink this giant bottle to die right now, it was close enough. Yes. Is my guess. Yes. I don't know, but that's my guess. But I kind of wondered about it because, I'll just talk about some of the lyrics here. So some of it's obvious, like, you know, so ask me tomorrow, no idea what I'll accept. So this whole thing is about, I think, something that happens to people who have a lot of facility, let's say with music, is it's very common, right? You'll have these bands and they'll have a great 1, 2, maybe 3 records. A lot of bands have one great record. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly there's this mysterious drop off in quality. Mm-hmm. It's like, what happened? Why, you know, how come, you know, name any band you want, has 1 or 2 great records and then 8 pieces of shit. And it's, you know, something I think most bands who want to be in this for a long time and feel inspiration for a long time fear. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm talking about when I say after every record, I'm like, God, I don't know. What else are we going to do after that? And then somehow it's just, you know, in my opinion, I've been able to keep the quality up, you know, just by focusing on the process at the moment, right?
Sure.
And I remember a funny quote from Keith Richards about the same thing. It was more in the context of like these like hot shit guitar players, because someone was basically saying, Keith, what's the difference? You know, what's up? You can't really play the guitar. Like, listen to all these guys who can really play the guitar, and they're fucking great. And Keith Richards said something like, yeah, but all those guys who can like play flashy, they fucking burn out.
Yeah.
Like, and I keep going because I focus, you know, because I'm me and I do what I do.
Right.
And so it's sort of that idea. And I don't know, because I did not talk to Jason about this, but, you know, he had a bunch of great records. And then I kind of wonder, and he was one of these guys who's like, he's like a productivity maven. Like, I got to crank this stuff out or I'm not really me or I'm not doing my job.
Sure.
which I think is a terrible mentality for a musician, because that's like, you know, a recipe for formulaic stuff that sucks. I don't think he ever got there, but I just wonder if he was feeling the creeping hand that he affects a lot of people, which is, maybe I'm not as inspired as I used to be, and maybe I am afraid of the future where it's not going to be exactly like it was when I was 23 to 29 and able to crank out stuff. I mean, listen to Bob Dylan talk. People used to ask him all the time, like, how come you were great then and you've sucked for the last 20 years? And he'll just say, look, you know, I had this fucking huge flash of inspiration for a decade or 15 years or whatever it was, and just hasn't been the same. And that's it. That's life. So it's sort of it's a little bit Buddhist, right? He just accepts it as it is.
I maintain that the last 20 years of Dylan are the best things he's ever done.
Right. But I mean, conventionally people would think that like 62 to 76 was like, you know,
sure,
great and everything else like that. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And
so I don't know. Again, I don't want to say I talked to Jason and I feel like this, but I kind of wonder, I feel it, that he had these fears, and that was kind of what drove him over the edge to get back into the addiction thing and get crazy with that.
You felt that he'd put too much pressure on himself. I mean, it's a weird job. I'm
sure there were a lot of things, but I in this song, I'm talking about someone who is experiencing that and can't deal with it.
Yeah, and I think that the job itself is so strange because, like you say, you know, how many other vocations are there where you might be really good at it initially, and then you maybe aren't as good at it, but you don't get the reception? Like, you don't get any sense of that because no one tells you. Whereas, you know, you're a guy putting out records and they're received by critics and fans and they sell or they don't sell and all that stuff. I mean, it all adds up to, like, changing your relationship to this creative pursuit. I mean, your measure of success isn't that satisfaction anymore. It could be any number of things. It depends on your mentality and
yeah.
Anyway.
And so again, I want to be sure to talk about this carefully, which is I do not have any idea if this is really what was going on with Jason.
Yeah.
And it would be one element of many that would cause, I think, Jason or anyone else to you know, seek a sort of a suicide solution or whatever. Mm-hmm. This is an imagined concept of some things that might have been running through someone in that position's mind.
I mean, we talked a lot about Neil Young, and I invoked the phrase binary. Jason had this too. Jason had different sounds, different tones he would go after. Is there a particular reason? Does that inform why this song comes back later, the way it does?
No, I don't really have a more complex explanation other than it felt right with the electric version, which came after the acoustic version I liked a lot, and then the electric version came easily and well, and that's about it.
Okay.
But that was one of the things with Jason that was cool about him was he did a lot of different things. He did a lot of bedroom recordings. He did a lot of acoustic stuff. He did a lot of ratty electric stuff solo. He did a lot of ratty electric stuff with the band, you know, so that was an inspiring thing.
Okay. All right. I appreciate this insight, and maybe we'll run into Jason again. I wasn't expecting to run into him so much. Is the overall title of the record related to this? Unreality? Is it related to him?
Oh, I think that's more of a Buddhist thing.
Okay.
It's kind of like, none of this is really, it's all unreal in the sense that it's hard to know what to sort of grab at and sink your teeth into. It's sort of related to this idea of, this Midwest DT's lyric sheet looks like, you know, I have a tape recording of someone in their last week, you know, drinking themselves to death, but I really don't. It's an imagination. I mean, for all I know, this isn't even close.
Right. Yeah. No, I hear you. Okay. We're going to move on to the next song on the record, song 6. Presumably, does this start side B? I don't have the vinyl.
Yes,
it does. It's called City and River?
Don't try stare down the pier, but there's no one to talk to. Oh, sir, won't you come for me? I know someone you did it for.
Now, you did me a favor, and you sent me a lyric sheet lyric sheets to most of the songs here, in fact. And in your document that you sent me for City and River, if this is accurate, it seems to have at some point been titled Safety First, Can You Help?
Oh, yeah.
Did you mean to send me this? Is this some kind of weird game you're playing with me?
No, that's really City and River.
Okay.
But I don't know why that was on there. It was probably some kind of scratch title.
Oh, interesting.
We found the one we liked.
Okay, so and does that title, the original scratch title, speak to the content of the song from your perspective?
I mean, it's another Alienation song, right? That seems pretty clear.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh, I don't really have inspiration behind the original title.
No, I just was curious. This has never happened to me where someone has sent me a lyric sheet with a different title, which has thrown me off a little bit.
Right. I see why it would.
Yeah, well, just because, I think I take titles to be kind of significant to what you're trying to convey. It's the first thing we see, right?
But sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. For example, Repack is a total nonsense title.
In a way, but for me it has
Sugar Puffs has a lot of content to it. Mm-hmm. The Usual does too. Your biography
sugary content,
Your biography is sort of the most provocative, suggestive title. So they're all over the map here.
Yeah. Okay. This is another song where it feels to me like you're the narrative here, if you will, or the character, if you will. It's a first-person I. Seems to be speaking with a ghost. Seems to be speaking with an apparition, maybe, or something. Am I off?
Absolutely.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. And again, I mean, we've been haunted by Jason here. Is he the guy?
No, this is more general, I think. It's just sort of it. I think what this song really is alienation, melancholy, and loneliness that is imagining feeling freer, like from vignettes in the past, but not specific instances.
Is it nostalgia? Is it an inherently nostalgic song?
Yeah, I mean, everything's in the past tense, or not everything, but most.
You're the only one I liked with so many I tried. Please take my advice. Don't drive all night. It seems to be, it's set kind of in the present, but then it does seem to be a series of memories. So I don't know. I don't have a lot of insight here. I'm just, I'm telling you my impressions.
Yeah, I suppose, like, whenever I think about people who are gone, Michael's always going to be the first guy I think of. Which is sad to say because that was 2005 and now it's 2017 and that's still true. I don't know. I guess this stuff, sticks with you for a long time.
I wondered about that too. I mean, when you talk so much about Jason, it's funny because the songs to me, I thought of Michael, and so it's fascinating to hear you say that at this point.
Yeah, I guess that's right. Like I haven't thought about it in this much detail before, but. I wished you were here so many times this year. I would never say that about Jason. Not because I don't like Jason, but just that wasn't our relationship where we saw each other all the time.
Yeah.
And like, he's not like the guy I would call on the phone and like shoot the shit with when I was bored at work, like Michael was.
In your morning, Michael, who do you reach out to? Who do you speak to about him?
No one. It's, I feel like talking about it doesn't help. I'm not saying I don't want to talk about it now. I'm just saying, like, I don't really know what to say. It is what it is, to use a cliche.
Well, this lyric you mentioned, I wished you were here so many times this year, that the next two lines are I believe, I can stare down the pier, but there's no one to talk to. It's just a endless longing there.
It is, but and part of it too is, I mean, it's sad to say, but as you get older, not everyone, but a lot of our experience, including mine, is your social circle shrinks rather than expands.
Mm-hmm.
You got more responsibility and stuff, like kids and other people are depending on you in ways that are very time intensive.
Yeah.
So, this stuff, you sort of see the tunnel narrowing a little bit, which is a little frightening at times. Yeah,
it is, and I appreciate you going through this exercise because I think there's a lot of layers here, and it's dark and painful. But I think I don't know. I hear some. You're grappling. I guess you're publicly grappling with things.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get asked this stuff a lot, so again, it's not like I'm out there shouting from the rooftops. So thank you for asking the provocative questions.
No, it's my pleasure. The record has mystified me in my own way as well. So it's nice to have this insight. Okay, let's move on to another song, which I enjoy very much. It's called Blue Dragon.
I have a name, but no one uses it. I'm feeling my way through that a woody haze. Hard to tell what things look like to me. It don't make sense because you were once all my age. I stumble around, I try to learn, don't know if it's sinking in, I know it hurts.
And this one has some more interesting turns of phrase. What inspired this one, as far as you can recall?
This is about being cute and young, and not needing to understand that you're not always going to be cute and young, and that's okay.
Yeah, I thought maybe it's hard to tell what things look like to me don't make sense because you were once all my age. I guess I just pictured you stumbling around trying to learn things and going to places and wondering what was going on with the youth of today.
No. This is just about being like, every experience is new, and it's about being a little child.
Oh, it is. It's the opposite of what I thought. Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, to me, that's sort of was the idea. I mean, but here's the point about it being a song is, right, it can mean whatever you want it to mean to you, and that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you and Tim, all of Silkworm once collaborated with Stephen Malcolmus, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You would do like Bob Dylan songs?
Yeah, we did a few things. We did, it was the Crust Brothers is what it was called, and so we did a bunch of songs from the Basement tapes that got eventually released as a bootleg, which is great if you ever find it.
Someone sent it to me. I have it somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we did some other stuff later on where we did other songs. We did some Guns N' Roses. We did some Creedence. So that was a fun period.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because when I was listening to it, I heard you say it's like the Pavement, but it will never stand. And I just thought of Pavement. I just thought of
Oh, no, this is like that's not what I meant, but that's fine.
It's not an American term, pavement, is it? It's like a British term. You guys don't use the word pavement for concrete.
You mean? Oh, I thought you meant. Doesn't pavement mean sidewalk?
It does. It does mean sidewalk. Yes, it does.
Oh yeah. No, this is like the pavement. Like, we use pavement to mean like cement.
Yeah.
Surface.
You do.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought maybe.
I think so.
I just always thought of it as a pretty British sort of use of the word pavement.
I think it probably, now that you mention it, it is more common there, probably.
Yeah. Did you, so you like the Basement tapes. Did you ever, I once found Big Pink.
Oh, the house?
I did.
Is it still there?
I mean, it was in the year 2000 when I found it. I believe it is still there. Yeah, I found it in upstate New York. Cool. I went and my friends, we were on tour, and we went and found it, and it was fun.
Yeah, it's cool, and the Basement tapes is certainly one of my favorite records ever.
Yeah,
and I remember at the time, way back when I sought out like there's the full version, which is like 300 songs or something. It's like many versions of all that stuff plus a bunch of folk songs and stuff.
Yeah.
Now they released it. It's like I had an official release of the full version. I haven't bought.
I have it.
Oh, you have it. Yeah.
I have it in my house somewhere. I don't know. It's holding up probably the house. It's very thick.
It's funny. I surprised myself by continuing to not buy it because it is one of my favorite albums. But I guess what it is, I just have listened to it enough, and I'm like, okay, I don't need it.
Yeah, I feel like the one of the bootleg versions of it was 10 CDs or 5? How many CDs?
Yeah, that's the one I have. I think it's called The Great White Wonder.
Well, that's the original. Oh, you have that. Oh, you have the actual Great White Wonder. Okay, yeah.
Well, no, I have the CD. That's probably a recording of that.
Oh, okay.
But it's a lot of CDs. It's like 8, yeah.
Yeah, it's something like that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, anyway, I don't mean to derail us. Is there anything, I mentioned Pavement, and then we got talking about Bob Dylan. This is a song about innocence, then?
Yeah, it really is.
Okay. Which is the other end of the spectrum of... we've talked so much about the end of life.
Yeah.
It seems,
but to me, this is supposed to be pure innocence. It isn't about innocence in the sense of like, oh, you're going to learn one day how experience is really tough.
Yeah,
That's not what it's not supposed to be like that.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be more like joyous innocence.
Yeah. I can see this too. I can see this song and Repack being the result of just watching your kids wander around. And function. Yeah, maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't know. Okay, I appreciate it.
No.
Is there anything you want to say about the music?
It's got a Bryan Adams part in the middle.
Bryan Adams?
Big one. Yeah, the Bryan Adams part is a coinage from my friend Tom Kipp in Seattle, which is a very common. What do I want to say? I want to say it's a trope or like a shtick that you got, especially in the '80s. And so, if you ever listen to like "Run to You," so you have your riff. It's like nat 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 nat.
If I had my guitar, I could play it for you right now. I know how to play. Right. I know how to play "Run to You." Yeah.
But notice what he does is he plays the song with that riff throughout. And then in the middle at some point, everything drops out, and it's just the guitar playing that riff.
Yeah.
That's the Bryan Adams part.
Right. Oh, I see. Okay. You did that.
Well, not really, because this isn't a real Bryan Adams part, because the middle part where everything drops out and it's just the guitar is actually a different piece of music. It's not a recurring theme from the song.
Right.
Which would be a true Bryan Adams part. So I have a really hard time bringing myself to do the true Bryan Adams part because it almost always sounds sort of hack. Which is kind of the point of it. It's a Bryan Adams part.
Yes, he's one of our most renowned hacks here in Canada. Right. That's fair to say. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we move on now to the penultimate song on this record, which is called Unhinged Melody.
Hide in the trees. Oh, I can't shake free.
Wow, this one's a difficult one on some level. Where did this come from? I'm running from loneliness. He's following me. He's catching me. It's like a nightmare.
Yeah. So this song, well, the title is supposed to be sort of funny, right? Because there's that
Unchained Melody. Is that the
yes? There's the famous. Is that a class? Is that a standard, or is that like a I don't even know what the song is.
Unchained Melody is a classic song by the Righteous Brothers, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
It was made particularly famous by the film Ghost.
Okay, I never saw that, but okay.
You never saw the movie Ghost with Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze?
No.
I hope I have my I'm just making this up on the fly. I believe everything I'm saying is correct, and it was the Righteous Brothers. I'm not going to Google it, but I know music, but my brain has just become mush, and I never really cared for oh, you know who else is in Ghost? Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, okay.
She plays Whoopi Goldberg. I don't remember her name, but yeah, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no problem. So the title is a little bit of a throwaway. The idea it's supposed to be really stark and exposed. The music is supposed to be sort of uncomfortable and awkward. And so that's why it's called Unhinged Melody. I'm not sure how unhinged it sounds, but it is what it is. It's sort of a rewrite of this song by James. The song has this line, it's either the same or similar, like I'm running from loneliness, like this concept.
Sorry, James who? James?
The song, the band, it's like the 90s British.
Oh, the British band James?
Yeah.
Oh, they had that big song.
Well, I heard it. It's one of these things where I heard it on the radio, and I'm like, oh, this song is like catchy in this way. But I felt like, yeah, it could use more edge. Like this concept needs, the way they're doing it is too smooth.
Right.
This has got to be explored in a way that's more substantive.
Right.
And it just, I don't know. So, I do know that's what it was. And so this song is very transporting. Like, if you get into it, it says what it says. And I'm running from loneliness. He's following me. I think everybody can relate to this, I think, or most people.
Right.
And it came off in the studio, I think. So I included it.
No, it makes sense, and it speaks again to these recurring notions of alienation and loneliness. I mean, there's no one to talk to, basically. Yeah, it's I don't know much more to say. I don't have much more to say about it because it's all right there. I think people need to hear this one.
It's short, so the awkwardness lasts 2 minutes.
Yeah,
so don't be scared of it,
yeah,
listeners. Listeners, you can handle it.
That's a good amount of time for awkwardness. I think if they've listened to me this long, they're familiar with awkwardness. Frankly.
Okay.
Frankly, yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that is it. Except that we have the song that we talked about briefly earlier, Midwest Delirium, which is related to Midwest DTs, but it's electric. It's
yes.
Making the highway a little less slow, wondering what to do when nothing would flow. How do we do this? I know you don't know. I'm wondering if it's new or it's just something we got.
I mean, obviously, lyrically, it's virtually identical to Midwest DTs.
Yeah.
Slightly different title, just to kind of point out that it is a different verse. It's not a literal copy and paste of the first one.
Well, you referenced two ailments, I suppose: the DTs and delirium.
Yeah, I don't know how different they are. Is the delirium a symptom of the DTs?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So.
But the rocker felt more delirious to you.
Right.
Okay.
It did.
Right. I think that it comes across that way, actually. It's interesting. I wonder what would have happened if you'd sequenced them in reverse. Like if you'd put the rocker early and then ended. I'm just curious. It might change. Well, it would obviously change the whole record, but it would change potentially the meaning of the song almost.
Well, that's the beauty of digital music, is the listener can do anything he or she wants with the
true
song order.
I'm just going to move it around and see how it sounds, how it feels on its feet. And put it on.
I used to be so serious about music that I would do that. I would program my CD player to play in different orders.
Oh, you would self-shuffle.
I would.
You would manually shuffle.
Back when I had time for that kind of engagement.
Well, we did it. We went through all of the songs. How are you feeling?
Good. It was more revealing and both more revealing and more pleasant than I thought it would be. It's hard to talk about lyrics, because it's not hard because I'm afraid of exposing what it means. It's hard because I hate prejudicing what other people think about it by saying what I think it means. Sure.
But I struggle with that in going through this exercise with people a little bit, because I think I've said it to bands before and artists before. In a way, you've said everything you wanted to say about it by writing the song. But I do think a little backstory, a little insight. I mean, I learned things about this that I would not have learned had we not spoken. So I appreciate this very much. What is next for you, so to speak, Andy? What's next for you and Like Coma?
Well, as usual, I'm thinking, I'm done with music. No, I'm kidding. I'm still playing. I'm still playing my guitar in my home office. I think that we will be playing to some degree. I don't know what the future is, honestly. Beyond the next practice.
Okay.
I unfortunately have backed off on playing live by a huge amount, just because the sort of time commitment involved is very difficult to deal with. So I don't have a lot of live shows to report. There will be some. Anything that comes up that looks interesting or exciting, I do. But I'm not beating the bushes to sort of play your Tuesday nights and Dubuque kind of shows.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I would think that, we'll keep going and there will be more of the same. And if it's good enough to release, we'll release it.
That seems like a fair perspective. And for more information about you and your band, where should people go on the internet?
I guess what you should do is you should go to Comedy -1, which is the record label. I used to have a Facebook page for sort of my musical stuff, but then I deleted Facebook because I don't like Facebook anymore.
I
haven't for a long time. I can't bring myself to sort of check in on that thing because I just really don't like Facebook.
Okay. You on Twitter or something? You on Twitter?
I'm not. I'm really not. I'm not the social media thing. I have a hard time engaging with it in a way that I find the benefit of doing it outweighs the sort of non-benefit or the detriments of looking at it. That's just my personal problem.
Yeah, sure.
So anything of substance like a show or a release is going to be at Comedy -1.
Comedy-1.com, I guess, is the best place for people to go then, and they can pick up copies of this in various forms. It's available on vinyl record here and other forms, I think.
Digitally
as well, yeah.
The sad part about the social media hatred that I have is that it used to be that I could get questions from people about guitar stuff or stuff like you're asking, and I love to talk to people about it. And since I don't play a lot of shows, I don't have a lot of exposure like in person.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I'm kind of bummed about. But I don't know. I guess people can email me if they're really that interested.
Yeah. I mean, people. Yeah. I think you've got to decide what you want to do there.
Yeah.
You can put your own sort of self-limitations on these things in terms of what you're willing to engage with and what you're not.
Yeah.
Here I am telling you how to use the internet. I don't know. I understand where you're coming from. It's overwhelming, but yeah. Well, to wrap this up, is there one single song we can play for people so they can hear one thing that we've been talking about so far? Is there something you would pick?
Oh, geez. That's kind of your department, because I don't have a lot of perspective on this record. If I were going to... I think... Okay, here's what I think. I think the best song on the record is The Usual.
Yes.
But I wouldn't play that because it's very quiet, and I don't think it's going to grab someone. So then I would say play Your Biography or the electric version of Midwest Delirium, or play Midwest Delirium.
I'm leaning towards the last thing you said as well.
Yeah. I'd go there.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, again, is credit to Jim McGregor for the sweet beat.
Yes.
I really dug the beat. That really took it away and made that one make the record.
You have to admit it's fun playing it in a band.
Oh, yeah. You kidding?
Yeah.
That's why I was ready for the message when Jim's like, we could be your band. I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, no.
I kind of forgot about being in a band for the last year. Yeah.
All right, well, this is it. This is Midwest Delirium by Andrew Cohen and Like Coma from their new album, Unreality. Again, available via Comedy-1, Comedy-1.com for more info. Andy, this was really fun, and I thank you for your time, and I wish you the best of luck with everything in your life and in your work going forward.
Well, it was a pleasure and an honor to talk to you, and it was great, and hope to talk to you again.
making the highway a little less slow. I'm wondering what to do when nothing would flow. How do we do this? I know you don't know. I'm wondering if it's new or it's just something we got. I tried to care, but I never saw the point. I heard you were falling apart, but it was out of my sight. I don't wanna drink that, I gotta keep my edge. Oh, just fuck it, I'll step off of that ledge. Is it good enough? Did it pass my test? I'm perfectly happy sometimes, a second best. Which is this one? No idea, it's just a guess. Ask me tomorrow, no idea what I'll accept. 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 I'll be dead tomorrow, that's what
was Andrew Cohen on the 369th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and available on all your finer podcast platforms. If you can't find an episode that you're looking for, if you want to learn more about me, or if you want to sign up for my regularly scheduled newsletter, please visit vishkhanna.com. You can like Creative Control on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at vishcreative, or follow me at vishkhanna. You can also listen to a radio show version of Creative Control on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time around the world at cfru.ca or on an actual radio at 93.3 FM if you're in or near Guelph. Also, please consider visiting patreon.com/Creative Control to make a flexible monthly donation to keep this podcast going. We have a modest Patreon page. That's the safest way of putting it. We could always use more support to keep the show going because it has been dipping down, and that's giving me a complex. Like maybe, what? Is it not worth it? I don't know. I don't normally care, but I also am like, I thought the show was doing better. It feels good, but you know what I'm saying. Patreon.com/Creative Control if you'd like to make a flexible monthly donation to keep the show going. This episode would not be possible without our sponsors, Pizza Trocadero, whom you can call for pickup or delivery at 519-829-2444, or check them out at trocaderoguelph.ca. They will deliver within the city limits of Guelph, so if you're listening in Chicago or something, please don't call. The Bookshelf is an independently owned bookstore, bar, music venue, and movie theater located at 41 Quebec Street in Guelph. They are proud sponsors of this show. Learn more about them at bookshelf.ca. Planet Bean, freshly roasted, fair trade, certified organic coffee. For more information about them, planetbeancoffee.com. Granddad's Donuts, located at 574 James Street North in Hamilton, Ontario. Amazing donuts. Visit granddads.ca for more information about their hours and menu items. To have a whole meal's worth of ingredients delivered right to your Canadian home, visit hellofresh.ca and use the promo code CREATIVE50 for 50% off of your first order. And FreshBooks, a cloud accounting software for small business owners. Try it free for 30 days. Go to freshbooks.com/Creative Control, and in their How Did You Hear About Us section, enter Creative Control. That's creative with a K and control with a K, all one word, and you get to try FreshBooks for free for a month. Give it a shot. Well, that's it for the show. Again, thanks for all your support and listening to the show, downloading the show, subscribing to the show. All of these things help the show get out there, and if you can tell some friends about it, that would be amazing as well. More episodes to come as we wind down the year 2017. Still have some stuff left, and I will get it to you just as soon as I can. All right, thanks again for listening. I will talk to you soon. Goodbye for now.